afternoon, everyone. You're all very welcome to our 40th MU Live, little token flag wearing here. So I'm delighted to introduce three fabulous panelists today. We have Teresa Heeney, who is the CEO of Early Childhood Ireland. We have Dr Leah O'Toole, who is the course coordinator of our Early Childhood Teaching and Learning degrees, plural, here at Maynooth University. And we have the lovely Antoinette Keeley, who is a second year student on MH801, which is the part-time offering of the Early Childhood Teaching and Learning degree. But I know that Leah, both Leah and Teresa will go through the new MH003 full-time 4-year option with you as we progress through today. My name is Fionnuala Finnegan and I work in the admissions office at Maynooth, and I'm here with my lovely colleagues Deirdre Carroll and Judith Caffrey, who also work in the admissions office. And we'll be here in the background, folks, answering any questions that you might want to put to us in the chat box or the Q&A at the end of your screen there. And then we hope absolutely to have time later on to pose some of those questions live to the panelists. And Antoinette is going to talk to us also about her experience on the course. So without further ado, I shall hand over to Teresa, who's going to share her screen with you now. So I'll chat to you later.
Hi everybody, and I'm delighted that you can join us. I hope the time is a suitable one for you, and that you will be able to answer your questions about the degree. I am just going to ask for a thumbs up from my colleagues to tell me that yep, thanks Leah. What I'm going to do this afternoon is speak a little bit about the work that Early Childhood Ireland does, and and then I'm going to hand on to, I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that Early Childhood Ireland does, and then I'm going to talk about some of the events that are happening in the early years sector at the moment. And then I'm going to hand on to Leah, who's going to go into some detail about the degree and the masters, and Antoinette is going to then give some personal testimony of what it's like to be a student. So thanks a million for taking the time to join us, and I hope that you'll find the next 40 or 50 minutes or so worth your while on at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. So just to tell you a little bit about the organisation that I work for, I am the CEO of Early Childhood Ireland, and we are the largest organisation in the Irish early years sector. We have 4,000 members, there or thereabouts, and that's out of 4,500 operators, and most of our members are operators of early years settings and school age childcare settings. We have a board of management. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and we have a board of management, and we employ around 40 staff who deliver a wide range of services for our members and supports for our members, including a policy and advocacy team, a research and professional learning team who provide supports on practice and quality and mentoring, and then a whole suite of different supports that our members need, everything from information about compliance through to our pajama day event, and a whole range of other supports, including Garda vetting and insurance and so on. We have a real commitment to celebrating the work of our profession, and we do that through an awards programme. And then we have a very large communications team who look after our blogs and our podcasts, our Instagram, our magazines, our e-zines and so on. We are looking forward next week to our annual research conference, where we have invited speakers and also our members share their research. And we're also looking forward to our conference, which is going to be held in October of this year. We like to work in partnership. We are involved in the LINK programme with Mary Immaculate College in Limerick and Maynooth University. But for over 10 years now, we've been working in this particular partnership, running the degree and more recently the master's degree with our colleagues in the Froebel department in Maynooth University. So that's us, that's the organisation. Our focuses are really about, in the main, it's about the experience that children have in settings. So our key focus is about quality. It's about what makes up a quality experience for children. So that obviously means that we're concerned about the qualifications of staff, we're concerned about the sustainability of operators, and we're also very concerned about the affordability of childcare for families, because we know that that's a huge issue. So that all then, when we look at what is happening currently, obviously COVID-19 has had a huge impact on our sector. I think that it has been recognised generally and widely that the early years sector is very critical. It's an essential service, not just for children and families, but for the economy. And our sector has been open since last June and has stayed open since last June because of its essential nature. And that has led to quite a bit of interest in this sector and ensuring that it is sustained for children and families and for the country. We are working in the context of a new government, of course, at the moment, and we have a new minister. Minister O'Toole was the previous minister. Our minister now is Minister O'Gorman. And while previously Minister Zappone had her department was the Department of Children and Youth Affairs, Minister O'Gorman has a vastly increased department, including disability and inclusion and equality. And so it's a much, much bigger department. And we were very disappointed that, and probably it has happened because of the size of the department, that we didn't experience any increase in our budget in 2021. So that has led to a vast increase in our advocacy agenda. So we do our advocacy through a wide number of means. You'll see us all behaving a bit foolishly on the steps of Buswell's Hotel here. But we are involved in all kinds of different forums with government and other agencies like the Department of Education and TUSLA. We recently presented to the Citizens Assembly because they're concerned about what the future of care is and what the role of childcare is. We have a variety of ways to consult with members, including our policy and implementation panel, and we would spend quite a bit of our time making sure that early years is strongly seen in the media. We make submissions to all kinds of different policy endeavours that are going on, and we would regularly consult with TDs about submitting parliamentary questions. So there's a wide range of approaches to our advocacy. A new development that we introduced just a few years ago was the introduction of a poll where we consult the public about what they think about childcare. And it's called our Childcare Barometer, and we release this now every January or February. And we ask really important questions of the public about what they think about childcare in early years and, you know, where the responsibility lies and what levels of investment are needed. And these are just a few that are interesting from this year's barometer. So we asked the question, how much do you agree with the statement that the government has a significant responsibility when it comes to making sure that childcare settings have sufficient funding to operate under COVID-19? And you can see there very high levels of agreement, which is great from the point of view of our being able to say to the minister and to other politicians, the public believe and agree with us when we say that we need good levels of funding for this sector due to the COVID-19 restrictions. Some of the other questions that we asked this year was this question: the government should pay the wages of childcare staff, as is the case with school teachers. Again, while lower levels of agreement, still significant levels of agreement with that statement. And again, that tells us that when we are coming up to the budget and we're advocating for funding, we can with confidence say the public agree with this particular statement. And then over the past 4 years, we have asked questions every year, the same question, so that we can see where the public's view on this is. And they're very important questions, because if levels of agreement, for example, go down, then we know we have to increase our advocacy. So this is one question that I think is of particular concern to us here today. the education of children under 5 is as important as the education of children over 5. This would be obviously a key value and belief and commitment of Early Childhood Ireland. And we can see here that 62% of the Irish public agree with that statement. That's very important for us, because it means then, as we advocate with government about increased investment and ensuring that there are professional roles, well-paid, sustainable roles for the early years workforce, these questions again allow us to convince government about the importance of this investment and the agreement of the Irish population. Another tracking question, which again is a very important question, and that is that by 2022, which is just next year, under EU guidelines, childcare staff who work directly with children must be qualified as other professions such as nurses and teachers, and when this occurs, the terms and conditions of their employment contract should reflect this fact. And very, very high levels of agreement, almost 75%, 3/4 of the population. So I'm just sharing those in order to show you that all of our work is with a view to the ongoing and continuing professionalisation and investment in this sector. And of course, then what we need to do as well is keep reminding the public, using as much of the media as possible, about the importance of this investment. So you can see there, this delivered rich access to the media for us through RTE and the various newspaper outlets. So the policy context that we're working within at the moment is the First 5 Early Years Framework, which was launched by government a few years ago. And some of the key commitments in the First 5 policy was about developing the early years workforce, was about creating a new agency called Childcare Ireland, and development of a new funding model. And I'm just adding there that the COVID introduced a new funding scheme called the Employers' Wage Subsidy Scheme, and that obviously is now a key factor in the funding model discussions. So these are the big issues, and these take up our time. So I'm just going to now talk a little bit about the workforce planning aspect of it, because it's particularly relevant to our discussions today. So I sit on the steering group of the Workforce Development Plan, and that steering group is made up of people from all of the different government departments: Enterprise and Employment, and Education, and the Department of Children, and the Department of the Taoiseach, and the Department of Finance, and the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. And then there is a stakeholder group, which is a wider group that is much more, with all of the various organisations in the sector set on that steering group. And at the minute, there are 5 working groups ongoing in relation to this work on workforce planning. There's one on promotion and regulation. So that one is focusing on how do we attract more people to work in this sector, because there is a shortage in our workforce at the moment. So how do we make it attractive, and how do we promote this this particular sector as a good place to choose to work in? And then regulation of the profession is also being considered by that group. And that means, should we have a regulator for this profession, like, for example, the Teaching Council is the regulator of the teaching profession. And if we were to have a regulator, who should do that? And what would it mean to be a regulated early years professional? So that's, you know, a very, very significant piece of work. The second working group is all focused on school-age childcare. So that's typically the care of children who are attending school. So ordinarily, as many of you will know, that means children might come to a centre in the morning, go to school, and come back to the centre in the afternoon. And then during the holiday period, they'll come for full days. So that group is looking at what role the school-age childcare sector should be providing for children and families, and what qualifications and training should be required, are the ideal requirement for somebody working with children of that age. Because of course it's a very different age group of children. It needs different levels of training and experience than if you have an early years qualification. There's additional information required. So there's a working group working on that at the moment. And then, which is very relevant to us today, there is a working group on a career framework. How do you go from being how do you move from being, say, junior in the setting that you're working in to being the manager? If you want to work in an organisation like Early Childhood Ireland, how might you do that? If you want to move into teaching like Leah, how do you do that? If you want to teach people who are training who are engaging in courses to be at level 5 or level 6, how do you do that? If you want to work for the inspectorate, how do you do that? And so there's a whole conversation there about the pathway that somebody will want to, who somebody working in the early years sector may want to pursue. Obviously, as well, a key part of that is if you want to stay working in the setting directly with children, what is the career framework for you as well, so that you can continue to advance in your education and training. And then there's a group on continuing professional development. So that group is looking at what are the ongoing professional development issues that somebody working in the sector may want to or should engage in. So that might be learning about child safeguarding practice, or it might be about documentation of children's learning, or it may be about, you know, attachment with very small children under the age of 2, which Leah has written books about. It's not just that she could write books about, she has done. So there's a wide range of continuing professional development, and it's about making sure that that is available for everyone and in a way that, again, advances their career. And then the final group is one that is looking at childminders, which is very topical because only last night the Minister Roderick O'Gorman launched a brand new childminding action plan, because we only have less than 80 childminders registered in Ireland, but there are over 15,000 childminders. And it is obviously in the best interest of children if those childminders are supported and if they are regulated and are offered support to achieve that regulation. So that plan launched last night, and it talks about new roles for supporting childminders, which again is going to be part of the career framework that I was talking about a little while ago. So that plan is rolling out over the next 8 years. So I think that's going to be a huge focus, not just for childminders, but it will be a focus for us on our degree, because I would expect to see more and more childminders accessing these kinds of professional learning opportunities like we have today here on our degree. I would say if there is one thing at the core of the focus of the workforce development plan, that is about that we are working towards a graduate-led sector. We are working towards a sector where every room in every preschool, in every creche, will be led by a graduate with assistants as well in the room. There are very clear targets that First Five has set out for that graduate-led workforce. So I really am happy to see all of you here today engaging in this discussion because this is going to be a key focus into the future. So I think with that, I'll hand you over to Leah, and I'll be sitting here on engaging in the discussion, eagerly waiting to hear from Leah. And I really hope that I might be able to take some of your questions and answer some of your questions as we move into that part of the session. Over to you, Leah.
Thanks very much, Teresa. Bear with me now, and I'll just share my screen here. You might give me a thumbs up if you're seeing that as well, Teresa. That's okay. Thank you. Thanks so much. The joys of technology. Let me see. Now. Okay, thanks so much, Teresa. That was just a really useful introduction into the area that I'm going to talk to you about today, our BA in Early Childhood Teaching and Learning. So just a little bit of background for you. I am a member of the Froebel Department of Primary and Early Childhood Education, and our department is named after the 19th century German educator and founder of kindergarten, Friedrich Froebel. Why I'm telling you about this, I suppose, is that a lot of the ideology of Froebel's work really enters into the work we do in the department. So in our department, we don't really believe in direct teaching, kind of similar to what we're doing here today, where you're just sitting listening to somebody speak. For us, it's, sorry, let's just jump forward. For us, it's more about kind of active learning, student-centered approaches. And Antoinette will be able to tell you a bit more about this, but we don't tend to like for our students to be sitting still, just being directly taught. It's more about their engagement and their interest. Our programs will cover a broad range of relevant and interesting modules. And really for all our programs, they have this very strong focus on practice. So we are very proud of our graduates, that they emerge from the Froebel department, whether it's our primary teaching graduates or early childhood education graduates, that they come out as excellent practitioners. So I think that's a really important selling point for our degree, and it's really reflected in our partnership and engagement with Early Childhood Ireland. It's a very unique element of our degree, this partnership, because it keeps us so close to practice, and we get to draw on the expertise of Teresa's wide range of expert staff. A lot of them teach on our degree as well. Again, a bit of background to the degree. It was developed in partnership between ourselves and ECI initially. We developed our 3-year part-time degree at level 8 in response to the sector's demand for flexible progression routes. So Teresa explained to you there a lot of the work that's going on in the sector, working towards a graduate-led profession. So those of you who are considering perhaps a degree in early childhood education, who maybe aren't working in the sector at the moment, or those who are, there really are likely to be a lot of big opportunities in our sector going forward. So this idea of professionalising the early years sector, all of the early childhood degrees will become 4-year degrees programmes. From this September, we will have both part-time and full-time degrees. Apologies for that, I don't know why this keeps jumping forward, the joys of technology, as I say. Our part-time degree for this year only, it will still be available in the 3-year format, so it's the last year of that. But the full-time degree is in the 4-year format. So I can answer any questions you might have about that as we progress. The aim of both degrees is really to support our students to be very critically engaged, to understand both the theory and the practice of early childhood education. And it's something that our external examiners and others who've engaged in the degree often note, that link between theory and practice that our students have. It sits at level 8 on the National Framework of Qualifications. So some of you may be considering coming to the degree from having done maybe level 5 or level 6. And certainly this is a lovely progression for that cohort. Or equally, if you're considering coming to us from Leaving Certificate, the next step as an undergraduate degree is at level 8. So obviously you want to know, what would I actually be studying here? So the modules that I've identified here are coming from the full-time programme, but the part-time one is very similar. So those of you considering the part-time degree, as I tell you about these modules, it will be a good kind of overview of what you can expect too. So in each year, we have 2 big modules that kind of underpin everything else that happens. They're reflective practice and professional practice. Reflective practice is really the hallmark of good practice in an awful lot of different areas, including early childhood education, but you'll also see doctors and in the nursing profession and in a number of professions really getting into reflective practice, because it's about reviewing what you do on an ongoing basis and ensuring that your practice is as good as it possibly can be. So we allocate a lot of time to that throughout the degree. And then equally, as I've already mentioned, we're really proud of how rooted in practice this degree is. So your professional practice module will be a very important one as well. And then in each year, they kind of sandwich 6 other smaller modules that you can see the titles of them there. Moving into the second year, similar format there with the 2 big modules underpinning all of the smaller ones. We started thinking second year really about play as the means through which children learn. A focus on play is threaded throughout the degree, but you have a specific module allocated to it here. In third year, then you'll start to think of children really rooted in their contexts, in their societies, in their communities, in their families, and how an early childhood educator, we call it a change agent, but really can change the world. I mean, those early learning experiences and experiences of emotional development can set the scene for future learning, for future engagement in the world, for future relationships. So what an early educator does, it's just crucially important for society. And we start to look at that a lot then. And then in year 4, you start to really become a professional leader for the early childhood sector. You'd also have the opportunity, sorry, I don't know why these are jumping, there will always be some problem in a presentation like this, sorry about that. You'll have the opportunity to do a research dissertation. You'll study things like transitions in the early years, curriculum, pedagogy and assessment. It's a really vibrant and rich degree. Some general information for you then. The full-time degree, it goes according to the usual university academic schedule. So that's on the university website, and you'll be able to see like which month lectures start and when there are breaks, etc. And the part-time degree then is slightly different. Students come to us one evening per week from 5 in the evening until 9 p.m. And for first and second year, that's usually Tuesdays. For third years, it's usually Thursdays. We then have one Saturday a month and 2 block weeks. So one before Christmas and one after Christmas. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions about that you may have. A little note on the fees. It's worth noting that the 2 degrees are funded slightly differently. So the full-time degree is funded by the Higher Education Authority, and the usual registration fee of approximately €3,000 per year applies. Full-time students can apply for a SUSI grant. Now, when it comes to the part-time degree, the fees are payable by the student rather than by the state, but actually in reality that works out as pretty similar because the fees are in and around the same amount as you would pay for your registration fee for the full-time degree. But the one thing to note is that a part-time student unfortunately can't apply for a SUSI grant. One thing to note as well about the degree is that we're very, very much focused on placement because we recognise the fact that while college-based learning is hugely important and theoretical learning is hugely important, the work of becoming an expert educator requires you to practice and it requires you to engage with other educators. So that's an important thing to remember. Those working currently in the sector can use their own setting once it's notified to SLA for work placement, but will then need to do an alternate experience in another service because we like people to get an experience of the different types of early childhood settings that there are. Those who aren't currently working, so for example in the full-time degree, we have a wonderful placement coordinator who is absolutely rooted in the early childhood sector, whose networks are beyond compare, and she will support our students to ensure a quality experience in placement. So how do you come to join us? The criteria, if you're coming from Leaving Cert, you could bank on in and around the 347 points. Obviously, points change, points are subject to change each year. It can be hard to say where the points will land, but that would give you a ballpark figure to aim for if you're currently working on the Leaving Cert. If you're a mature applicant, you will need to apply through CAO as well, but you may need to do an interview. And then for VTAC or QQI students, you can come to us with level 5 or level 6. It's worth noting that all students will have to do a secure Garda vetting, and we look after that for you. And all students have to be willing and able to complete their placement in the TUSLA notified service. So why us, I suppose, is the next question you might be wondering. I've already mentioned the really strong selling point for us is our partnership with Early Childhood Ireland. It's a unique aspect of what we do, and it keeps us so close to practice that we really are recognised in the sector as a very high quality degree. So when people apply to settings with a Maynooth University degree, it's very well received, and they're likely to be they're strong applicants for jobs, put it that way. The honour degrees really prepare students to spearhead and lead learning and development in early childhood education and care settings. And also beyond that, I mean, as I say, we're very proud of our expert practitioners, but there are also other career trajectories that our graduates have taken around, national development agencies, government departments, voluntary organisations, things like the Office of the Ombudsman for Children comes to mind. One of our recent graduates just started to work there. But there's a huge amount of opportunities opening up across the sector, and really taking a level 8 degree with you from Maynooth University really will set you on the right path. In terms of postgraduate courses then, there are a lot of opportunities for you in that regard. One of the routes that people sometimes take out of our degree is around primary teaching. So the BA in Early Childhood Teaching and Learning is a very good base degree if you're going to apply to the PMEd to do primary teaching. Now, there isn't a direct route in, but you're very well placed to apply. And it's funny, people sometimes ask me, are you sorry to see people go to the primary sector? And of course, we never want to lose our lovely graduates from the early years sector. But at the same time, we kind of think of them as almost our sleeper agents for the primary sector. They can introduce play and self-directed learning that's so strong in the early years. So some of the comments for our graduates, I can sing the praises of the programme, and you might think, well, the programme coordinator would say that, wouldn't she? So we thought that some of these kind of testimonials were worth hearing, and as Antoinette is going to share her experience too. But some of our graduates said, I thought I knew so much before starting my degree, and now I know so much more. I understand children and how they learn, or doing the degree has opened me up to new ways of thinking. That's what I find really exciting about working on this degree, is seeing people really develop their thinking and their confidence and their sense of professionalism. So I now feel like I'm a real early years professional. I found that completing the BA in Early Childhood Teaching and Learning really helped me to make sense of the theory and practice. The learning from every module could be directly applied in the ECCE setting, and it was invaluable to reflect on practice with others. I've grown as an early childhood professional as a result of completing the course. And again, that's something that gives me great pride and pleasure, is watching our students really blossom as they go through the degree. Deciding to do a BA in Early Childhood Teaching and Learning with MU was the best professional decision I could ever have made. That's a pretty powerful statement, isn't it? And it's opened up a whole range of job opportunities for me. I would highly recommend this course. So then, in terms of postgraduate options that I've mentioned already, the Professional Master of Education is one of the directions that people go, but we also offer two really interesting Masters of Education in Maynooth University. One is the Research and Practice Masters, which focuses on developing your skills as an expert practitioner researcher. And then there's also the Master of Education with an Early Childhood Specialism, and that's a really nice route to go as well. And of course, then the primary teaching route too. So that's all I really have to share with you this evening. But if you want to get in touch with me, my email address is on the screen there, or at least it was, there we go. And we're also active enough on Twitter, so that's our Twitter handle there. People can direct message us there as well. Thanks so much for your time, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Leah. I think your poor laptop is suffering the same affliction as my own laptop. So
I'm sorry about that.
The sound quality. Look, it's out of our control, unfortunately. It's one of those things. So apologies also if I sound a bit robotic. But thank you. That was absolutely excellent. Thank you to both Teresa and Leah. Really, really interesting presentations. And I do hope that the attendees might drop any questions that they have either into the chat box or into the Q&A. And we might even have time later if you'd like to raise your hand, and I can unmute your microphone if you'd like to pose your questions live to the panel. But I think you know, as a really important part of MU Live, obviously, is to hear the student experience. So we have Antoinette here, who is a second year on the part-time MH801 degree. So you might begin, Antoinette, if you wouldn't mind, just telling everyone a little bit about yourself and your experience at Maynooth and on the course and all of those types of things, whatever you would like to tell us. Go ahead there. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Fionnuala. Hi, everybody. My name is Antoinette Keeley. As Fionnuala said, I'm a second year student in Maynooth, studying early childhood teaching and learning. Originally, I had finished my level 6 online, more or less, and when it came to going on, family life got in the way. Was at Maynooth for a talk and came across Annette, and she said she's the perfect course for me, part-time, because she knew I wouldn't want it interfering with my job, which I've been in for 21 years this year in Dunboyne. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And looking at some of the comments there, I can say it's one of the best things I have done. It's again making that connection, bringing theory and practice together. My colleagues have seen a difference in me. I have seen a difference in me. The course, as Fionnuala was saying, and Leah, it's part-time. It's a Tuesday evening, 2 lectures per evening, and we've one Saturday a month. And then we have block weeks in October and then around March. Regarding the course, I've made some lovely connections with we have a fabulous year. We have a mixture of students straight from Leaving Cert, and obviously, shall I say, mature student like myself. And thanks for the invitation to the coffee morning I got for the mature student. We're having a bit of laugh about that on our WhatsApp group. We have a group WhatsApp for the class, but we also have a pod WhatsApp group, a smaller one. I've had the privilege of having the first year in college, and obviously this year with COVID, we're kind of tied to Teams. And I must say the lecturers are doing a fantastic job to keep it engaging, to keep us on board. We go into different rooms to still communicate with each other, not just with our pod, but with others as well. So it's nice. But you do build those little relationships with certain people, and you'll head in and head for those. But we're a good bunch. And as I said, it's a mixture of ages, and they all get around really, really well. So it's definitely good to have that mixture of age, experience, and youth.
Fantastic. And just as you pointed out there, obviously 2 quite different experiences, Antoinette, in terms of your non-COVID time at Maynooth and your COVID time at Maynooth. Now, fingers crossed, and I know everyone is really doing the best that we can to ensure that students will be back in September, but I suppose we are tied into the government guidelines. But would you have any tips for students here today who, you know, just in terms of being able to navigate those 2 different spaces between COVID times and non-COVID times, now reflecting back? What would you tell students going into the process in September?
Well, going into the non-COVID time, please God, we can get back onto campus. Just be yourself. Take everything on board that you can. Use the resources available to you. The lectures are there at the drop of an email. You've got the writing centre is a must. It was a long time for me going back in, and it was quite nervous. Back into academic writing, back into using IT. Use the resource there, use the writing centre, use the library, take part in the talks that they bring you around. They benefit no end. You think you know everything, you don't know everything. And then on COVID, we still get to go to the writing centre online. We still get the tour of the library. Adeline from the Writing Centre has come on and done a few lectures with us, keeping us up to date with everything, support if we need it as well. So yeah, it has been different. You do miss that physical interaction if you're that social sort of person. but you still get to mix online as well. But I am looking forward to getting back into the classroom with the guys.
Absolutely, I can well imagine, as we all are. Thanks, Antoinette. In terms of there, you said you had a level 6 coming into it. How much of a gap was there between your level 6 and the level 8?
Well, I hadn't finished it because I'd started online, so I think it was 2013.
Okay.
And then my husband had gone to Canada with the job, and the boys were young, so it got put on the back foot. So, as I said, when I met Annette, and she had said, "Perfect for you,"
yeah,
it was time to get back into it. So, academically, I've done workshops, talks, online training, but nothing compared to this.
Yeah,
it's hard work. It is hard work, but you reap the rewards, and the children reap the rewards, and the parents. So it's a knock-on effect for everybody.
Sure. Was it a big leap in terms of just levels of difficulty, maybe between the level 6 and the level 8? And
yes,
how might people prepare, or do you just jump in and avail of the support?
I suppose it depends on the person you are. As I said, the college are really, really supportive, and you can look at our class. As I said, Leaving Cert students who are used to academic, straight in, but even for them, they were finding it a little bit different because it's on your own back.
Yeah,
you're not spoon fed. You have to, but if you've got a passion for the sector, and for me, it's living it. I love the quality ones, the quality proofing somewhere, the environmental spaces, those ones, because I can see it in our practice daily. So you will always have a connection back to what you're learning and what you're working, if you're lucky enough to have. So it is important if you can get into somewhere working, definitely.
Okay, yeah. And where do you work? You said you mentioned Dunboyne. What goes on there?
Yeah, I work in the ABC Club in Dunboyne. As I said, I'm there nearly 21 years. We advocates for inclusion, advocates for outdoor play. Our children, as I say, they wallow in mud on a daily basis. Not to impress.
Is it a play school, Antoinette? Sorry.
Yes, we're a sessional play
advocates for community involvement, advocates for children's voice, advocates for children. I would say it's a wonderful setting. It absolutely is, and I know some of the rest of Antoinette's team, but I know well about the work that goes on there. It's a very well-known setting in Ireland, I would say, because they're award winners, multiple award winners, the service that Antoinette works in. So I can only imagine how wonderful it is to reflect upon that experience when you're in your class. I mean, I think just to say, I think that's one of the wonderful things that students on this degree get. They get to learn from the mature students' experiences, while bringing, of course, and Antoinette's right, while bringing their own experience, and probably having attended a play school themselves as well, which is a really, really interesting discussion to have. But I can't but think how fortunate the colleagues in the class are to be able to hear from the experience that Antoinette and students like her can bring to
absolutely, I can imagine. And I suppose,
sorry for jumping in there, but I
not at all.
Didn't think you were going to shine your light properly.
Yeah, it brings us nicely along. I suppose the placement option, is that, are students helped with that, Leah? Or I know obviously some of the more mature students might be working in a sector already. If you're already working in a sector, are you encouraged to get a different type of experience? And how do students go about that process?
Yeah, so Antoinette mentioned Annette. Annette is our placement coordinator, and as I said in my presentation, she is just absolutely steeped in knowledge. She's so knowledgeable about the sector, and she has so many networks and connections across the sector. So we're really so beyond lucky to have her on the degree, and our students really benefit from her extensive expertise. So it depends really on the background of the student, how the placement works out. So a student like Antoinette, who's working in practice, their work is allowed to count as placement. Now we do ask that students like Antoinette do 15 hours, additional hours in another setting, because the sector is so varied. You know, you could have, you know, say a full daycare creche, you could have a Montessori setting, you could have a play-based preschool, and it's just to give people, we like our graduates to leave with a good understanding of, for example, how it is to work with babies as well as 5-year-olds, as well as toddlers, you know, and different approaches. So that's for those who are working. I'd imagine for the majority of people, they will kind of gravitate towards a part-time degree. For those who are not working in the sector, and again, maybe these people will gravitate towards the full-time degree, our placement coordinator, Annette, will find places with you and for you, and you know, will ensure that really that the placement that you get is in a really high quality setting. So a place like where Antoinette works, where you really can get to see really good quality practice.
And just if I would add in there as well, Fionnuala, I do know that some we have had students who've chosen to continue working in their day job, whatever that day job might be. It might not be in the sector, and to then do the course on a part-time basis. And we've supported them as well to get placements. And indeed, some of them have left their other job before concluding their degree because they've been offered full-time jobs in the early years centre that they work in, because after a certain period of time, after you've achieved a certain number of credits, you're considered to meet the requirements of our regulations. So that's after how long, Leah? You might answer that. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, so in the 3-year degree, after first year, we can apply to the department for recognition at level 5 or level 6, so that the student can then practice. For the 4-year degree, I'm assuming that will be after second year. Students will be able to do that. Now, we have to apply on a case-by-case basis, but the majority of occasions, the department are very favourably disposed towards that.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity, really, to enter in with no understanding of the early childhood sector at all and emerge at the other end a very kind of expert practitioner. And it's interesting that Teresa says that about students sometimes taking up employment in the place where they went on placement. That's actually really common. And I think it's a real reflection on the strength of our students, that once people get a hold of them, they don't want to let them go. You know?
And we've actually got to, Leah, we've actually got, we've had 2 students in the last couple of years who've actually worked with us now.
Yeah, so that's a prime example of this. Yeah,
that's great. A question actually came in before we started the webinar. So for someone maybe who might be either a young adult or a mature student who doesn't have a level, the minimum entry, which is I think a level 5 QQI, but have a level 4, what would your advice to that person be, Leah?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to consider going and doing maybe a level 5 or a level 6. You can apply. If somebody has a level 4, they can apply. They would need to be interviewed, and depending on numbers, we could kind of see how it goes. But I would probably predict that after interview, the direction might be, consider doing level 5 or level 6, and do come back to us next year. You know, like I wouldn't like to discourage anybody from applying, that if they feel that they've got the experience and, you know, the qualification background that would be worth trying to apply, then certainly we're willing to have a conversation with you and, you know, to have an interview. They would be in a better position though with level 5 or level 6 under their belt.
That's great. Thank you so much. And back then to Antoinette, you mentioned the Writing Centre, and a question came in straight on the back of that. So what is the Writing Centre, Antoinette? Can you let people know? Thank you, and thanks, Leah.
The Writing Centre is actually on campus, and it's not too far from the Froebel building. And they are a group of fabulous people who support those who aren't who are either coming back into academic writing or only starting out with academic writing. And using the whole references, Harvard reference and guide that we use for our course. So they will go in, they might not have a background in childcare, but they can guide you in your assignment. So you'll go in with your assignment printed out, and they can be the difference in you going from a C to a B or a B to an A, in the little tips that they give you, and they're tips that you will carry forward throughout your assignments.
Definitely, that sounds worth it. Yes,
definitely.
So head to the writing centre and have them proofread over.
Yes,
great idea. Thank you so much.
Sorry
Antoinette.
to jump in, but I would absolutely reinforce what Antoinette is saying there. Like, over the years, we have seen students go up in full grade bands based on the support of the writing centre.
Fab, thank you. The questions are coming in here, which is great. So keep them coming, folks. I'll pose another one here if you don't mind. I think this could be for Leah. Can you start, on the full-time MH003 from a level 7? And if so, would it still be a 4-year, or can you come into year 2?
Okay, so my answer to that is yes and no, because definitely we do take transfer students, and we do take advanced entry students. But the problem, I suppose, is that the full-time degree, it's our first year that the full-time degree is running. So this coming year, there will only be a first year. So into the future, you would be able to have advanced entry on it. But at the moment, there won't be a second or third year running for another couple of years. So what that person could do, if they wanted to, was apply to the part-time degree. And there is advanced entry on that. So depending on which level 7, some level 7s you'll do over maybe 2 years, some level 7s you do over 3. So depending on which level 7 they have, they would go into either second year or third year of the 3-year degree. So if that person would like to get in contact with me, it's leah.o'toole@mu.ie, and I can talk them through their specific circumstances.
And Fionnuala, I might just jump in on the question.
Absolutely,
on the level 7, level 8 question. It is, in terms of the developments in the sector and all of the roles that Leah would have described earlier about working for, government departments, or working for inspectorates, or working in those kind of support agencies, or working in research, there is no doubt that a level 8 degree is the degree that's required. So it doesn't surprise me that this participant wanted to know about transferring from level 7 to 8. And it's just that the number of people in our sector that are undertaking degrees at the moment is absolutely phenomenal. It's just brilliant. And we can see, so much enhancement in our sector because of that. But just to advise anybody that if they are thinking about those other sort of support roles that they tend to have as a basic entry level, they tend to be at level 8.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Another question here. So you mentioned primary teaching. So someone has asked, can you go straight into primary teaching in a primary school once you have completed the full-time 4-year MH003 degree?
No, you can't. This degree qualifies you to teach in early childhood settings. So usually with children from birth to age 6, it doesn't qualify you to teach in a primary school. However, it is a route that a lot of people use to access the PMEd. So that the PMEd is a postgraduate qualification. It's a 2-year qualification that does qualify you for primary teaching. So after you've finished your degree in early childhood teaching and learning, you would then go on to do a further 2-year master's program. And as I said, there's no direct entry route there. It's not an automatic thing. You would have to apply. But with our degree, you would be very, very well positioned to make that application.
Yeah, and I suppose important for that person then to have a look at the entry requirements for the professional masters in education with the O4. With the H4 Irish piece and the other English and maths requirements, but they can certainly get that information from our website. We've had another question pop in here.
Sorry, Fionnuala, just before we move on from that last one, just to note for that person as well that obviously in the Froebel department we do the BEd degree. So I'm not sure of the code, I think it's MH001, Fanula, you might know, but the BEd is the one that qualifies you at undergraduate level to teach in primary schools.
Correct, MH001, that is it. Yeah, perfect. So you mentioned the points. You might just recap there, Leah, while we obviously can't really predict for 100% sure, but you gave a benchmark earlier on. So someone has just asked if that you could possibly mention again the CAO points, please, for the level 8 full-time degree. Many thanks.
Yeah, so it's difficult to predict for the full-time degree because, as I say, this is the first year that the full-time one has run, and as you may be aware, the points are based on demand, so it's very difficult to know what demand will be for a new program. But I think the points for the part-time degree offer a good kind of benchmark for anybody working on the Leaving Cert at the moment, that they're trying to see, you know, what do I need to aim for here, and they're usually in and around 340, 350, that kind of figure.
Yeah. How many places are available on the full-time degree, do you know, Leah?
We're aiming at around 40 at the moment.
40, excellent.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much. If you have any other questions for our panel and you would like to pose that live, please do raise your hand and we can unmute your microphone if you're brave enough. If not, you can keep posting in the Q&A in the chat box. And I just saw that Kelly has written in and she wants you all to know that she has used the Writing Centre and it eased her nerves brilliantly. So another sort of good recommendation for the Writing Centre and the benefits of using it. So does anyone have any further questions that they'd like to put to our panel before we leave? I've answered all of the ones that have come in so far anyway. As we're waiting for people to pop those in, I might ask Antoinette, how easy is it, Antoinette, to make friends on the course?
It's actually a lot easier than you think. Like that, I'm going into the course thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be one of the oldest here and they're all probably only kids coming out of school. It wasn't the case. And we're, as I said, we're a good bunch, we're a good mix. It takes you a couple of days to see similar, but again, it's supported by the lecturers and putting you into the smaller groups and finding out a bit about you, your background, how long you're in it, in early ed, and you're supported. And you'll always have somebody in the course that will see the one person that's not getting involved, so they'll encourage them to come in. And as I said, the WhatsApp group, the group WhatsApp group, and then the pod WhatsApp group they're a great source of support. So if you need a question, oh God, I'm stuck on this, does anybody know a reference for this, or how do I do this? And at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat.
Sure.
We're all there to get our degrees to the highest level we can get them, and we're all there to support each other.
And I'm really getting the sense that it wasn't lacking in collegiality, even though the degree is a part-time degree and many of you would be working, that you still could come together on the course and have fun. And obviously, because you're all interested in the same sector, maybe go for coffees and things together when it permitted. Did you go on any interesting social events or social evenings before COVID? Or maybe that's something you might put into the calendar for the future?
They're definitely on the calendar for the future. On the Saturdays and the block weeks, we would have went for lunch. There's a fabulous shopping centre and a lovely couple of restaurants around. So, or we might even just hang around the college and out on the green and gather then. And it's not the same groups all the time. So it is lovely and it is very social, and even using the library together. It's such a fabulous campus with surroundings, and we made the most of them when we could. As you said, it was only part-time, but yeah, we made the most of it.
It's great. And parting words of wisdom then, any tips that you would give your first year self, reflecting back?
Be yourself, take all the information on board and enjoy it. You will be a better person at the end of it. and the children will benefit from that, hands down, definitely.
Mute. I keep doing that, muting myself and then speaking. Amazing. Even after 40 MU lives,
Yeah.
I saw Victor do it. Listen, I can't thank you all enough for coming on today on our 40th MU live. I really appreciate it, and it was really, really interesting, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you so much to Teresa, to Leah, and to Antoinette, and I'm sure the attendees got a lot out of it as well. There's one last question in, sorry. How many assignments per module and what word count is expected?
Yeah,
Dr.
that's an
Leah
interesting
O'Toole,
question.
might end on a high.
Yeah, there's obviously each module does have an assessment requirement, but it depends on the size of the module, you know, what kind of word count equivalent it is. So as I mentioned in the presentation, we've got 2 kind of big modules and they would have a higher word count. So the reflective practice would be the equivalent of 5,000 words. And then for practice placement, your actual placement works towards that, and you would have things like assignments or presentations or whatever. All of the 5 ECTS modules have the equivalent of about 2,500 words, but there's different formats. Again, you might be doing a presentation, and Antoinette mentioned in the quality proofing exercise. So, you know, there's different types of assessment. So I think they really allow students to shine in their own way. We don't do exams, actually, so that might be something that...
Yeah, I was just going to add that there's no exam, so all of the modules are assessed by assignment or a presentation or something, or a group project would also be a feature as well. So yeah, so it's important to know that there are no exams. It's all assessed by assignment.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely ending on a very positive note.
Indeed.
Listen, thank you again to everyone. And
bye-bye, everybody. Keep well.
Absolutely.
And if anybody wants to follow up with me, please do. It's often the case that you hang up from something like this and think, oh, I should have asked that question. So again, it's leah.o'toole@mu.ie.
That's great. Thank you so much. And enjoy your weekend and stay safe,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thanks again. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.